No one saw it coming as the St. Louis Blues head into the final stretch of preseason with multiple players making a push to crack this lineup to start the season. Jim Montgomery has high praise for one player in particular as the forward continues to push to break back into the NHL. We're going to break down quotes from Jim Montgomery heading into the first game of the regular season and so much more on this episode. You're not going to want to miss it. But before we hop into that, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone watching. If you're part of the 53.3% watching this and you haven't hit the sub button yet, but you want to stay up to date on everything to do around the St. Louis Blues, from prospects, game recaps, trades, rumors, reports, anything you can think of, you can catch right here on Blues Digest. So go ahead and hit that free subscribe button. It means the world. But with that, Darius, let's just jump straight into where we know the St. Louis Blues are getting very close to opening night going into the regular season. We know a preseason game coming tonight against the Ottawa Senators, with multiple faces coming in that we know are going to crack the team. But there's one player in particular that's going out to make his name shown to this management group, and that is Milan Lucic. Now, there's a lot of quotes that we got coming in. Listen, this full article by Jeremy Ruther, it will be linked down below, and there's awesome quotes, so go read through this. But Darius, Lucic is an interesting name coming into camp and to start camp. There's a lot of quotes coming from Jim where he said himself, it looked like it's been a year and a half since he last played, that he needs to get better and continue building with this team. We've seen Lucic go down with a groin injury and miss some time. But what is your initial thoughts on just Lucic continuously getting better as camp goes on? Listen, there's a lot of more quotes to break down from Jim, but overall, Lucic is starting to define all odds, and it seems like there is a chance this forward gets back into the NHL at some point with the Blues.
Yeah, I don't think it's a very good chance, but I think, like you said, there is a higher percentage than 0% at this point in time, which is pretty surprising to me that he could actually make the opening night lineup. And Milan Lucic, when they signed him to that PTO, it didn't make sense to me in the moment. It didn't make sense to me through training camp, and it still doesn't make sense to me right now. But I do understand why, and some of the quotes we'll get to in a second, why they did it and why it could actually make sense. But the fact that he could actually make this team and it's trending in that direction is a little puzzling to me. I think, of course, you want guys to play certain roles on this team, especially in the bottom six and in the bottom of this lineup. But to me, Milan Lucic, you look at all the videos that have come out, you watch the game, all of that stuff. Like, a lot of these guys and the league is a lot faster now. So I just don't know if he actually fits into what this team is trying to do. One thing for sure is, it's not guaranteed that he's going to make the team. He has one last opportunity in this game to make an impact, because we're getting really, really close to the regular season. The regular season kicks off on Tuesday, which is crazy. We're less than a week away to the regular season in the NHL, and he's trying to make one last good impression. Will he actually make the team? I doubt it. I doubt it very much at this point. I don't know if he fits in, but they're at least giving him the opportunity to show something to them. But the rest of the lineup is pretty interesting. There's a lot of guys on this list in this lineup that will actually make the team, and they're trying to see, where everything is going to fall. I would think that that's exactly what the defense core is going to look like actually in the regular season. That is, exactly what we'll see game one. But in terms of forwards, giving a couple guys an opportunity still, and there's a couple other guys that are hanging around as well, which I think is interesting, just soaking up some experience, I guess. But it doesn't really make sense to me, although there is, I believe, one reason why they did actually make this signing. We'll get to that in a second.
And I mean, the big thing is, listen, Lucic has not been in the NHL for quite some time. When he was in the NHL and in his prime, a great player, he's won cups. He's went out to play great. But the big thing is, Jim Montgomery goes even farther when he came back from his injury to say he looked really good, looked really sharp. It's good to have him back out there. He was making a lot of plays. Seems like his confidence is growing through camp, which is a good sign. Now, there is some ties between Jim Montgomery and Lucic. We've seen them together on the Boston Bruins for a brief stint when Lucic was in the league with them. But the big thing with Lucic is there's a lot of experience. A lot of players look up to a guy like this that has went out to win a Stanley Cup, has been around the NHL and played pretty well. And we even see Kyrou, a former teammate of Lucic on the Boston Bruins, say he's like an encyclopedia. One day he could and should be a GM. Now, the big thing with Lucic, you can't sign someone just because they're smart and they've won a cup before and bring leadership, but it does get interesting when you're looking through this team and the battle the team is having. I mean, we know what the top six is. Jim Montgomery went out himself to say, hey, we know the top six. We know the top 8 on defense, or top 6 on defense as well. But the big thing is there is going to be a battle, and we're going to break down one player in particular that Lucic is probably going head to head with. But what is your initial thoughts on just looking at Lucic? We have a quote coming from Jim saying that there is a thing where they could see him farther into the season or camp. But what is your thoughts on Lucic trying to fight for that fourth line spot?
Yeah, and he doesn't have to be signed to an actual player standard agreement to play in the NHL or, an agreement like that to stick around is what I'm trying to say in the organization. There's other things that they can do, including another PTO. There's other things like, signing him to an AHL contract, maybe just sticks around the organization. And at the time when they made the signing, I was saying that that's the only reason this signing makes sense is to have a guy who's won a Stanley Cup. And because of the way he plays and played, that style of play, if you look like 10 years ago when the Pittsburgh Penguins were winning the Stanley Cup, it wasn't as physical, at least in my eyes, right? Now we're back to the physical NHL, right? Like, look at the Florida Panthers. They're beating everybody up on their way to winning a Stanley Cup, right? The last couple of years, or just making Stanley Cup final appearances 2 years ago. So to me, that's the only reason this signing makes sense, because this team is relatively young. Bringing a guy in like that who's like, hey, this is the way you have to play. But to me, some of these quotes, we see it in some of the videos and all of that through training camp. You have to get up to speed. This is the NHL. He's 37 years old at this point, and credit to him to try to make this comeback, I guess, at this point. But you have to look like you belong. And just because he's starting to get his confidence up and starting to make some plays, training camp is done. The preseason's over at this point. You have to get into a game. You have to make an impact. And he's fighting with other guys that I think have a better shot at making the team, first of all, and are younger and will be here for a while, right? Can be bigger parts of this team. So I don't mean to shut it down 100% if some people want Lucic in the lineup, but to me, doesn't make sense in that way. If you want to keep him around as that guy that can, obviously give some of the younger players some insight into, this is what it's like to win a Stanley Cup. This is how you have to play if you want to win. These are the things you have to do off the ice if you want to win a Stanley Cup, based on his experience and some of the players he's played with in his career. I understand that, but to have him in the lineup every night, I just don't know if he's going to be that much of an impact player, especially in the regular season. So we'll see what happens. He has one last opportunity here, but ultimately, I think there's other guys in the organization that would be better suited and, will be around longer anyway.
Because I think the big thing is looking at Lucic, he has that skill set. He can go and he can throw hits, he can grind into the corners. But the big thing is, like what you brought up, speed is a big thing. And I think that's where someone like Joseph has the edge. Listen, Joseph had a bad season last year. He's getting paid a lot of money. But if you can't move on from a contract like this, keeping Joseph on the lineup, to add that speed for certain games, you're going to be playing games against Connor McDavid where you want a faster lineup. You're going to be playing games where your team is slow and you want to inject that speed. So I think keeping Joseph and letting Lucic either go to the AHL, stay around the team in some kind of management form. I mean, we've seen the quote come from Kyrou that he's an encyclopedia and he's great around the players. So it does get interesting when you're looking at all this. And like you've seen the Jim Montgomery quote saying that they're not going to get into specifics, but there is a way they can extend him without signing a contract. They can go in to an extra PTO. They can go in to give him an AHL PTO, whatever it may be. It seems like Jim Montgomery does have feelings for a guy like Lucic that was in the organization of the Boston Bruins when he was there. I think all signs are pointing towards him not making the roster out of camp. He's not going to crack into that third line spot where we're seeing an internal battle, but there would be a bit of value keeping him around the team, like you said. But Blues fans, what is your thoughts? Leave a comment down below on your thoughts on Lucic. Does he make the team? Would you like to see another PTO? Let us know down below. And speaking of comments, we'll go straight into comments today. Speaking on Kyrou and Holloway, who make that line go regardless of the center, but Schenner wins more faceoffs than Suter, and I think this is a good thing. You have two guys battling for a spot. Both work in that position. So if an injury does happen, which we don't want to see, or if you need to shake things up, at least Jim Montgomery knows we can go, hey, Suter looked great between the two guys. Shen looked great between the two guys. Maybe Bukestad looks good there too, but let us know down in the comments what player is going to have the biggest impact this year. Is it someone like Shen going into a reduced role on the third line? Is it Suter taking a second line center role? Let us know down in the comments. But that'd be it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back in another episode, so keep your eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care.